What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Strength Coach Rants. I'm your host, Connor Lyons, and this morning I woke up, I chose violence. You're welcome. Let's go.
I don't want to hear you, 'cause you cannot master the strength.
All right, so welcome back. As alluded to in the intro, today we're going to be talking about something I'm fairly passionate about, and that is girls and women's sports. Now, I'm passionate about this for a few reasons. One, I have a daughter now. She's only a little over one, but if she wants to play sports in the future, I want to create a world where there's actual legitimate opportunity for her. I also work with a ton of young ladies at my gym here outside of Tampa, Florida, who are all trying to make it to the next level, and they work as hard as they can, whether that next level is like the high school varsity team or the 14U club or travel team, or trying to get to university to have some of that school paid for because of their skill set. Like, that's what we're trying to do. And then also I worked with the U.S. Women's National Program for about 3 years. That includes from the 18U to for about a week during the summer, we have a 22U team, and then the senior and Olympic teams. So I was there for 3 years. I worked with some of the most talented women on the planet when it comes to the game of hockey. So I feel like in a lot of respects, I'm uniquely qualified to talk about a lot of these things. All that being said, we're not just talking about women's sports. We are talking about whether or not biological men should be allowed to compete in these women's sports. Up until just a couple weeks ago, it has been a problem for a while, right? And the reason that it's a problem is because a lot of these sports organizations like the NCAA, the Olympics, probably even some of the amateur programs that a lot of your kids play in, if you have kids, they kind of punted the ball up to the international and national governing bodies, right? So you look back at Leah Thomas, this was about a year ago, was able to compete against and win a national title for women's swimming at the NCAA level. And believe it or not, I mean, it is, but it wasn't really the NCAA's fault because they had punted the football over to the U.S. Swimming, who refused to make a decision as to whether or not trans athletes could compete against women. So what these, the NCAA and the Olympics and just a lot of these organizations, they said, hey, we're not dealing with this. I don't want to get canceled. So we're just going to say whatever the international governing body says, that we're good with that. That's cool with us. So if trans athletes can compete, nothing we can do about it. Our hands are tied. So more recently, and I did a video about this a couple weeks ago, it was right at the beginning of last month. It's been a busy couple weeks here. I don't know how often I'm going to be able to do these episodes just because we are so busy. I'm on the floor upwards of 13 hours a day coaching. Not a lot of time to do the podcast, but I'm going to try to get as many as I can in. Nice little side street there. We'll get back on the main route here. But the NCAA now has, again, their hands tied because the Biden administration has decided that they were going to create new regulations and rules when it comes to Title IX, right? So Title IX is a funny thing. Like I said, I made a video about it not too long ago. I talk about what Title IX is, what these new rule changes mean. So I'll link it in the description. I'll put it as a little card at the very end of this episode here. So you can go check it out if you want to learn more. But essentially now, trans athletes qualify for Title IX protection, right? So Title IX allows for equal opportunity for girls when it comes to educational opportunities. And believe it or not, athletics is an educational opportunity as far as the federal government is concerned. So now, I mean, that's what gave rise to women's sports. That's why they exist. Otherwise they probably wouldn't have. Big part of Title IX, and it wasn't all of it, but a big part of Title IX ended up being sports, and allowing women to have their own categories of which they could play, so they didn't have to compete against the men, because 50 years ago, we knew that there were differences between men and women that we've somehow forgot at this point. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit here in this episode. But now trans athletes, or trans women, biological men is what we'll call them, because that's what they are are being afforded the same opportunities as women. So now, if you do not allow a trans woman, a biological male, to play on the women's basketball team, right? They can now, you open yourself up for a discrimination lawsuit, and you open yourself up to lose funding from the federal government for your university. So there's a lot of money involved in this, and now the NCAA has their hands tied again, which I'm sure they love because they don't have to make a decision. They don't have to be the bad guys here. And now trans athletes have to be able to compete, and there's nothing anybody can do about it at this point unless they want to be sued or lose their federal funding. Is absolutely insane to me. But that's where we're at in the year 2024. There are no longer differences between men and women, and it is absolutely mind-blowing that we've ended up here. I legitimately don't know. I do know how it happened, and we're going to talk about that next. All right, so while typically outside the scope of athletics and things that we talk about on this podcast and on this channel, it's completely pertinent here to talk about, though, because we're talking about what got us here to this 2024, where now men can be women, the points don't matter, just like whose line is it anyway, and anybody can do whatever they want. So what got us here, and you might not like this, it might piss you off to hear, but it was feminism. Feminism spent the last 60 years trying to convince the entire world that women could do anything that a man can do, right? And if women can do anything a man can do, you start to blur the lines between what a man is and what a woman is. And now we have people that legitimately don't understand that there are differences, enormous ones, between men and women. You've taken away what it means to be a woman, like the how insanely special it is to be a woman now, because even men can do it, right? It's insane to me that feminism, what tried to prop up women in the beginning, is now being used as a tool to prop up men. Like, riddle me how the hell that happened. It's wild to me, but honest to God, you have no one to thank but the feminists who created this insane world that we now live in when it comes to gender, right? It started off with gender is a social construct. Okay, you want to play that game, that's fine. All right, but now you're trying to convince people that there's no differences between the sexes, when in reality there is a world of difference between the sexes, right? So how we got here was feminism blurring the lines between what it meant to be a woman and what it meant to be a man, in an effort to prop up women. Women have now propped up men. How's that for you, anti-patriarchy feminists? You've now contributed to the growing of the patriarchy. Pat yourself on the back. There's a lot of differences between men and women, and I'm going to pull up a screenshot here from an article that I wrote. I'll link this in the description as well. But it just goes over the differences in testosterone levels of men and women, right? So where are we? If you're listening and not watching, which is we actually have a lot more listeners recently. I think our listeners jumped up by something like 600%, which is awesome. Thanks to everybody who's been listening. But I have a graphic on the screen here that's testosterone levels by age in nanograms per deciliter. It breaks up there's a men column and a women column. The age brackets are 7 to 10, and then 13 to 18, and then 19 plus. So at 7 to 10, believe it or not, a lot of young girls have higher testosterone levels than boys do. Like upwards of 5 times the amount of testosterone that boys do. If you've ever wondered why young girls often compete at higher levels when it comes to sports at a young age, so we're talking about 8, 9, 10, 11, even 12, and then girls tend to start falling off. They don't keep up with the boys. It's because of this. Their testosterone levels are very low. Now, from age 10 to age 13, something kind of crazy happens, right? We start to hit puberty and a lot of things change. Women have more estrogen and young boys start to develop a lot more testosterone, to the tune of upwards of 500 times the amount of testosterone they had at the ages of 7 to 10, right? That is a big difference. That is why young boys get stronger, get faster, can jump higher, can run longer, can run faster for longer, can recover better. All those things are a byproduct of testosterone and, some other things. But the average 13 to 18-year-old boy is going to have upwards of 10 to 20 times the amount of testosterone that a young 13 to 18-year-old girl is going to have. That's insane. That's a lot. That is a vast difference, right? And then once you get 19 plus, right? So, and actually, I'll scale back for those of you listening. From 7 to 10 for young boys, it says men, but boys, 1.8 to 5.7 nanograms per deciliter. For young girls, it's 2.7 to 10.3, right? That is upwards of 2 to 5 times the amount of those boys of that boys have. The lower range is also higher than the boys' lower range. From 13 to 18, boys sit at 208 to 496, while girls sit at 16.7 to 31.5, right? That is a big difference. And then from 19 plus, right, this is like when your testosterone levels are higher than they're ever going to be for the rest of your life. And if you're a young boy in this, or a young man, I guess at this point, 19 plus, and you're taking steroids, you're a moron, because look at that. You'll never have this kind of advantage for the rest of your life. And you're shutting off your own testosterone to put exogenous testosterone, and that might not even accumulate to the same amount that you would have been having produced naturally. So just a little side note there. But men are 265 to 923, while women are 15 to 70. So at minimum, it's what, 100 times? Over 100 times? Greater, right? I mean, that is, no other differences matter at that point. Nothing, right? Because that is the basis for everything that we consider to be athleticism. That should shut the book on this entire conversation. But, again, feminism has got us here. Now we have an entire generation who is so beyond confused about what being a man is and what being a woman is, because they've been told their whole life that there are no differences. Right now we got to live in this like awful, awful world. So, just that's how we got here. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to go over some examples here. We're going to talk about what I feel like are probably some solutions to this problem. And then we'll go ahead and shut her down. Before we really get any further into this, and before you at me, we're going to talk about the conflation between trans-identifying and intersex, right? So, and I'll put the receipts in the description here, so you can peruse this information on your own. Like I said, I'll also link the article I wrote about this about 2 years ago, dealing with this same exact topic that has all of the information and then some that I'm going over right now. But intersex individuals, they exist. They're real. They've been real since the beginning of time. We don't really understand why it happens, but it absolutely does. The only problem is that they are misrepresented in numbers when it comes to this conversation. You will hear that they represent upwards of like 7 to 8% of the population, when the reality of it is 0.018% of our population is intersex, like from a biological standpoint. If you don't know much about intersex, it's kind of beyond the scope of this video. But it is people who would be like realistically like non-binary. They could have female like genes and male parts, or they could have male genes and female parts. It's just luck of the draw as to how it happens. We don't really understand why it happens. So it is not even as high as like 0.1%. It is 0.018%. And I'll link that survey into the description here. All right. And then within the United States, about 0.58% of the adult population, which is about 1.4 million if you don't include the 15 million illegal immigrants that have come over the past 5-6 years. They identify as trans. So we're still talking about like a minuscule amount of people who are identifying this way. And the fact that we're creating legislation to bend over backwards to facilitate like their need for competition, if that's what it is, it blows my mind. All right. But what we're gonna go over here, not too long ago, there was, this popped up in my my Twitter feed, or X, I guess it's officially X now, my X feed, and it was Lizzie Bidwell, who was a high jumper. I'm not sure of the state. I think it was New England. I don't know if they have like a New England championship for all the high schools, like a regional type thing. But he won, she won, whatever, won the high jump up in the New England Championships. I'm going to play that video here. Right. Ended up in first place. And when you compare I hate this so much. When you compare his high jump to the boys section or the boys side of things, he would have come in 21st place. Right, that's not first place. That's not setting a state record. That is 21st place. That is, for those of you not into sports, that is not even standing on the podium or anywhere near it. Right, you might actually have to sit in the audience if you finish in 21st place. Then there was not too long ago. This probably, if any of you guys are on X, you've probably seen this. It was finally a group of parents. And this video is playing now. It's a track. It looks like a 300. I don't think they go. No, it might even be a 200 here. All right, but this young biological man ends up winning. You're hearing some cheers right now because the young girl was winning. And then as he pulled ahead, he got a lot of boos. I think people are finally done with this shit. Like it's wild to me. This was about, let's see, this might have been like 2-3 months ago. Another track. It might have even been the same meet. I don't know. It might have even been the same dude. But if you're watching, you can see it. If you're not watching, there is this what is clearly a biological male passing all these young girls in this race. This looks like it also might be a 300, but this is nowhere near as close as the last one. You're talking about the last one, that young lady lost by like a stride. They're coming around the back end of the lap here, and this dude is 30 yards ahead of anyone. And as they come around the bend here, you'll see it. Like there's nobody else even in the shot, right? So, I mean, this isn't all that out of the ordinary. Like, and it's sad, right, that all those young ladies back there just got dusted by a dude. And by the way, this is the dude here.
I'm pretty sure top in state right now is like a 53 or something like that. That's my goal, to be top in state, potentially beyond. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think there's a lot to be proud of today, and I think there's a lot to take forward.
Yeah.
So congratulations on the second place.
That sounds so feminine, right? Like, his goal is to be, top in the state. So this young man is taking away opportunity from a lot of young women. Like, it is sad. I had one more. Oh, so this is actually a video of some of the young girls who had to compete against this young boy. And we're not gonna watch the whole thing. It's about 5 minutes long. But just some of the things that they're saying here. Just listen.
Yeah. I think for me it was very frustrating because at one specific meet, I saw that this biological male was running with females, and I saw him finish way ahead of everybody. And I was like, that's not normal. Like, everyone is in a heat for a reason. And it just made me livid when I found out that it was a guy. And I think that we have a girls and a boys, like, for a reason on a team. Like, you'll see us practicing boys and girls separately for sprints because that's just how it is. And if you look at, for example, like hurdles, there's 100-meter hurdles for girls and 110 high hurdles for guys, and they're high because guys can jump higher and are faster. And if you compare the times of both of those, most boys' times are faster than girls' hurdle times. Not always, but that's the case.
I mean, they're almost always, and we're actually going to go over something here in a minute dealing with that. So shout out to Brian from the Whatever podcast. I would have had no idea that this website exists if it wasn't for that podcast. So thank you, Brian. Also, shout out to, what's it called? boysversewomen.com. Now, if you've never been on this website, it compares 2016 high school boys NBNO finalists to 2016 women's Olympic finalists and the numbers in track and field and swimming. We're just going to go over a couple of these. But All right, so at the very top of this, if you're listening, you're not watching, it essentially breaks down all of the numbers from that high school boys final and all of the numbers from the 2016 women's Olympic finals, right? And it shows if they all raced against each other, what the medal count would be, right? And the medal count for the boys. Sorry, let's start with the women because I'm going to have to do a lot of counting for this. For women, the women would have won 1 gold medal, 2 silver medals, and 3 bronze. For the boys, we were looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. 28 gold medals. I'm not counting the rest of those, but it's a lot, dude. It's as many silvers and as many bronzes to the women's 6 total medals. You're looking at probably 60 some odd medals. These high school boys would have won. All right, so first one here, we're not going to go over all these. Like I said, we are going to go over some of them. 100 meters boys versus women. And I'll zoom in just a hair. All right, so if these high school boys had been at the Olympics against the women, not a single woman would have placed higher than 9th place. The fastest number at the 100 meters for the boys was 10:44, and the fastest number for the women was 10:71. All right, moving on to the 200 meters. A woman would not have placed in the top 9 or in the top 8. The first place woman was in the 9th place in this scenario here, a full second behind the boys. All right, we'll go down to 400 meters. And again, a woman would not have finished in the top 8. In the 800 meters, a woman would not have finished in the top 8. In the 800 meters, they were a full 6 seconds behind the first place boy. And 5,000 meters, this is the only event here where women actually had advantage over the boys, and it really wasn't by all that much, about 11 seconds. First, second, and third would have been women. 6th, 7th, and then 14th, 15th, and 16th would have all been women. But there's a lot of data and evidence to suggest that women fare better when it comes to endurance activities. Childbirth being one of them. I don't know very many men that would be able to go through that, but women fare fairly well, and it's because biologically they're built that way. The 400-meter hurdles, again, the men are dusting the women by upwards of 3 seconds. Not a single woman would have finished in the top 8. We go 4x100-meter relay. The men would have, or the boys, sorry, high school boys. I keep saying men. These are high school boys. Would have finished first and second, and the women, the top ones, would have finished third and fourth. Now we go to the 4x400-meter relay, and again, not a single woman would have finished in the top 8. The long jump and triple jump are up next. And the long jump, a woman would have come in 5th, 7th, 9th, and then 12th through 16th. Again, the boys have gold, bronze, and silver. When it comes to the triple jump, women would have come in second, all right? But again, remember, we are talking about the best women on the planet going up against high school boys. So keep that in mind. The pole vault, men 1 through 4, again, they would have had all the medals. High jump, boys would have had all the medals. Shot put, the boys would have had all the medals. So again, back down to the medal count. I mean, it's unbelievable. We're not going to go into the swimming, but it's fairly similar. There was, when it comes to world records, all right, these are track and field world records, and if you're not watching, it shows the 100-meter 2, 4, 8, 1,000, 1,500 the mile, the 2,000-meter, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 marathon. All right, so all these various Olympic events, and from every single one of them, with the exception of the marathon, and again, remember we talked about this earlier, when women tend to be built a little bit better towards endurance. High school boys ages 14 to 18 would have all of these records except for the marathon. And in some cases, by upward, like the 3,000 meter steeplechase, the boys are almost 20 seconds faster when it comes to, let's find one where they could, by the 5,000, 10,000 meter. It's almost a full second. Javelin, it's 2 full meters. Hammer throw, it's 3 full meters. The discus, it's almost a meter. The shot put, it is a little over a meter, which, what is that, like 3 feet in freedom units. Triple jump, again, the boys are winning. It's just, it's wild to me. Like, here's some more. So the 100 meters, 18-year-old world record, the 17, 16, and 15 are all higher than the women's world record. The best woman in the world still does not beat the best 18, 17, 16, or 15-year-old boy in the world. Wild. And then there's also there's a note on here that the women's record's actually disputed as being the record holder because she had used PEDs, supposedly. Same for the 200 meters. The woman edges out the 13-year-old but loses to the 14 through 18-year-olds. And again, there's a caveat that it's pretty well known that she more than likely used performance enhancers. The same thing with the 400 and 800 meters. Women are beating the 13-year-olds, but they are losing to the 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. Let's go with the 1,000 and 15,000 meters. And again, yeah, go check out this website. There's a ton of information on here, and it can really give you like a decent understanding of how different we are when it comes to performance, right? And that one world record kind of being in the middle of all the men's world record or the boys' world records, barely edging out the 13 and 14-year-olds, right? The fact that she was possibly and more than likely on performance enhancers, so she needed performance enhancers to be able to compete better than a 13-year-old. Just think about that, right? So when we're talking about the differences between men and women, they're vast, they're enormous. You can't discount them because of feelings, right? All right, so we've established women and men, men have no business at all competing against women for a lot of reasons. I'm not even talking about combat sports like MMA where you had Fallon Fox essentially beating up women where it looked like domestic violence and the dude could not fight worth a shit, but just so happened to be stronger than every woman until he actually got crushed by one. We're talking about track and field. We're talking about baseball, football, basketball, hockey, not football because women don't play football as often. You do have some that do, and there's some that can play. It's just not that common. But next thing we're going to talk about potential solutions to what now is a bigger issue than it ever needed to be. All right, so now we're going to talk about what I think, I guess, the best way that I can propose to fix this problem would be, for one, strong men to be strong men and support strong women when it comes to these things. Now, this first video I'm going to play happened, I think it was at a high school, it might have been a middle school, track and field meet where there was a young biological man competing against these young girls, and they just flat out refused to compete. They said, screw it, we're not doing it. So they get out there, pretends like she's going to throw the shot put, and then DQs herself. This happens a few times. There's another girl comes up, does the same thing, and walks out, DQs herself as well. And this happens 3 or 4 more times where these young ladies just refuse to compete because they're playing against these boys. Now, what these girls, right, in order for them to be strong young girls, they need strong men, right, to be supportive of them, and they need other strong women to be supportive of them. They need people in their corner to really make a difference, and I don't think anyone did it better than my dude Avi Silverberg, right? So little known fact about me, for a good while, I say good while, it's probably 7 or 8 months, right before Charlotte was born, I was doing some content writing for a company called powerlifting.com or powerliftingtechnique.com. His website's owned by Avi Silverberg, who is he's the women's, he might just be overall powerlifting coach for Canada, the entirety of powerlifting Canada, and specifically in Alberta. And there was a trans dude, trans woman, biological dude named Annie Anders, I think, who had decided to compete in the 84 plus kilogram weight division with the women, who is a biological male. And there's actually video, it's kind of disgusting, where this asshole is talking about how it's so weird that women are not good in the bench. Like, why is he the only good female bencher? Like, legit, I'm not exaggerating. That's what this dude said. There's a lot of reasons for it. Like, the number one reason why you're the best female bencher is because you're a dude, right? But Avi Silverberg saw this, and he saw the insanity that it was that Canadian powerlifting feds were allowing men to compete against women. So he decided that he was going to enter in as a trans woman, and he set the unofficial Alberta bench press record and the I think Canadian national record for a woman. So this is video of him doing just that. This is a little over a year ago. But there he is. And easy. That was 167 kilos, so like 340, 350 some odd pounds. He destroyed the women's record set by Annie Anders up in Canada, and it was just to make a mockery of it, right? This dude Avi is a strong man. I'll show you a picture of what he looks like here. Yep. So that's him. That's Avi, right? He's the dude. This is the first like semi-viral post I ever had on Twitter back when I had like 5 followers. I got something like 15,000 impressions on this one, but he is a strong man. He is a strong man who is strong because he's supporting these women and taking a stand in a way that they can't. He's showing the absurdity of what this is. Is it going to take big, like legitimately strong looking men to jump into these competitions against women to show these feds like, dude, you got to change? I think that women standing up and not competing, and men, actual men, getting in there and competing against these women to show these feds how insane what they're doing is the only way this changes. I don't see it any other way right now with the new Title IX changes. If you're an 18-year-old boy and you're going to college and you're like a stud athlete, dude, take one for the team. Go try out for the girls team. They can't tell you no. You might even get a scholarship. Sure, it's going to screw over some of these girls, but it's going to show the absurdity of this whole thing. Let's say you're like a 5-star offensive line recruit when it comes to football, right? Clearly a man, 350 plus pounds. You're enormous. You're a monster, right? Go play, I don't know, women's rugby. Is that sanctioned at the NCAA level? You know, like, show how insane this is, because it's only a matter of time until they've got to take some steps back and figure something else out. So, and I know this is very easy for me to say as a man who's not a young girl trying to compete, right? You're still trying to get to college, or you're trying to set records, or whatever the case is. I know that is not an easy thing, and I don't mean to make light of this by saying men should just go compete, but like, this has to change. Be a part of the change, you know, that you want to see. You know, it's not gonna be an easy thing to do. We're like waist deep in shit here, and it's gonna take some digging to get out of this thing, and it's gonna take all of us banding together to get through this and then on the other side. So my suggestions are and I didn't mention this yet, trans divisions. Like, what's stopping them? If they really are such a large percentage of the population, why are there not trans divisions? Create them. Boom, problem solved. 2, men, start competing. Like, show the absurdity of it, just like Avi did, right? He smashed the Canadian bench press record by over 100 pounds, right? Just show them how absurd and stupid this is. If they do not let that, and I don't actually know what ended up happening to this, but if they don't let that record stand, then the whole thing's a sham, right? And you know it. And young girls, even when there's a lot on the line, refuse to compete against these men. There was a strong group of female power lifters. This was a couple years ago. God, what's her name? The woman, she's the head strength coach for Olympic sports over at Arizona State. God, what is her name? Can't think of her name. She was in a meet. All the women refused to compete. They just got up on the platform and, you know, said, nope, not doing it. And that's what it's going to take for legitimate change here. So, I think that's it for today. I kind of rambled for a bit there. This whole thing really pisses me off. It's so frustrating because, I've got a young daughter and I work with young girls and I want the best for all of them, right? And it just seems that there's something that is stepping in their way. And I don't know what the end game is here, right? I mean, should we sit here and think like they've got the worst of intentions, right? They're just trying to divide the culture. Or the people making these decisions, do they really, are they, sympathetic to trans people? They may be, but I don't see it at this point because there's been no appetite for creating a trans division. So, I'm at a loss for words at this point. I think I've said enough of them. So we'll go ahead and shut it down there. I don't believe women should be having to compete against men. We didn't even get into the issues of what goes on in the locker rooms and things like that. That is a whole nother ball of wax that I don't know that I'm going to get into on here because I don't know that I have the time, and I'm pretty sure I don't know, I'd probably get like yanked anyways because I'd get pretty pissed off. But biological men should not be competing against women. Women refuse to play. Men get in there and play to show the absurdity of it and create trans divisions. Like, it's 2024. Figure it the hell out. And that's going to be it for today. I don't know when the next time we're going to upload a video or an episode will be. It might be in a couple weeks. It might be next week. Who knows? I may end up with some extra time. But we are slammed busy right now, and I'm getting ready. I'm preparing to go up to Amherst, New York to work with the men's side of USA Hockey at the 17U selection camp. By the way, go buy my book. I'll link it in the description, The Dynamic Effort Method for Athletes. It is a stupid easy read. I'm talking you could read this in an hour and a half, and it's going to give you so much information when it comes to actually coaching your athletes for speed, your higher training age level kind of athletes. But go buy the book. This is what it looks like. There's a paperback. There is an ebook version, and then I wrote another book called Simple Strength, which is it's a great way to organize your training. It was like 3 pages too short for a paperback though, so we don't have one just yet. I got to get in there and make some changes. I'm just kind of unwilling to do it at this point. But go buy those 2 books. They're incredibly inexpensive for the amount of information that you get into them. Just want to see how many of these things we can sell. You can find them on my website, which I'll link in the description. They're all sold through Amazon. So go do that. If you have any questions, always feel free to send me an email at connor@theldsp.com. I'll put that in the description as well. I will link the article that I wrote about this and the Title IX episode from a few weeks back into this as well. I think I got everything out. I think that's it. And everybody have a good rest of your weekend because this is coming out on a Saturday for some reason. And we'll see you next time.